There's a family Bible on the table. Its pages are worn and hard to read, but the family Bible on the table will ever be my key to memories. At the end of day when work was over, and when the evening meal was finally done, Dad would read to us from the family Bible, and we'd count our many blessings one by one. I can see us sitting round the table when from the family Bible Dad would read. I can hear my mother softly singing, Rock of Ages, cleft for me. This old world of ours is full of troubles, but this old world would oh so better be if we had more Bibles on the table and mothers singing Rock of Ages cleft for me. I can see us sitting round the table when from the family Bible Dad would read. I can hear my mother softly singing, Rock of Ages, cleft for me. Rock of Ages, cleft for me.
Well, mighty fine in a great big Cowboy Church Live. Heard the word Bible study. Howdy! I see Mickey's left hand is on the 7, his right hand is somewhere near the 12, so it must be around 7 o'clock. Cowboy time. Come on in, join us for Bible study. Golly, are we glad to have you with us tonight? Got a pretty healthy looking crew out there tonight. Hope it's as beautiful where you are as it is in the panhandle of Texas. We've had a lot of rain and it's greener here than I think I ever remember. It's just beautiful. But we're so glad that you've taken the time to come with us. Hope you invited a friend. See who we've got out there. Oh, well, there is somebody I don't know. Hi, my name's Pastor Jack, the old trail boss. Come on in and join us for Bible study, will you? Hey, we're in the book of Genesis, so I hope you got a Bible with you. If not, it's okay to use you can look on your phone, book of Genesis. But welcome. We're glad to have you with us. We are in chapter 46 and 47 tonight. We are closing in on the end of the beginnings. How you like that? Book of Genesis. The book of Genesis is called the Book of Beginnings. And I was reviewing the last couple of days as I was looking at this, how much stuff there is in what we've covered so far that's going to impact everything that we're going to read the rest of the way through the Old Testament and certainly into the New Testament. I don't want to spend a lot of time tonight reviewing, but I will here in a minute. Couple of announcements here in 2 weeks. This Sunday is I've lost track. 16th, is that when we're in Ardmore?
Yes, that's when we're
16th of this month, we are going to be journeying down to Ardmore, Oklahoma. That's about 75 miles north of Dallas Fort Worth, and about the same amount south of Oklahoma City. So we will be there for a big Appaloosa horse show, the Dalworth Horse Show, and they've invited us to come to Cowboy Church on Sunday morning. So if you're in that area, we'd love to have you come down. If you're not in that area, drive over. We would love to have you be part of our worship service there. So that's on the 16th. That same I think that same weekend. Stay tuned. We've got
Isn't it Sunday the 17th?
it may be the 7th. That weekend of the 16th. Let's do it that way. I don't have a calendar in front of me. So take a look at your calendar, and it'll be on the website and in the Gazette. Want to make sure that I remind you of our weekly podcast. Take a look at those. Speaking of podcasts, we have a big how big announcement coming up in the next couple of weeks relative to a brand new podcast, a new outreach from Trail Boss Ministry. So, they're even blowing fanfare right now. So stay tuned for that and be praying about that if you will. Other announcements, I guess that's pretty much it. I wanted to be sure I remind you, okay, that we have a lot of new stuff, new T-shirts, new Bible covers, and so on in the general store over on the website. And I don't talk about the website enough here on Bible study. Our website is www.trailbossministry.com, and there's a lot of stuff on there. You can go back and look at past editions of the Gazette. The general store is there, information about where we're going and what we're going to be doing. You can access the podcast from the website. So take a look at that. Go over and take a look at that. That's also a good place to get in touch with us. On that website is a tab that says Contact Us. That is a great way for you to get in touch with us, especially maybe some of you have a prayer request or something that we can help you with. Please do that. Go ahead and go there. We check that every day so we can stay in touch with you. That's very, very important. Okay, let's go ahead and get into this. I want to do a couple of things. As I say, we're in chapter 46. I mentioned to you that we're going to be, chapter 50 will be the end of this. And then what we would like to do is what we have done the last couple of years, and that is everybody gets real busy during the summer. So what we've tried to do is we try to get together every other Thursday. But what we've done in the past is we've tried to take a look at things that you really are interested in. Maybe you have questions about and are interested in what the Bible has to say about it. A topical Bible study, as you will, instead of a word for word through a book of the Bible. So I mentioned that last week, and we've had a couple of people send in things they're interested in. So be thinking about that. And matter of fact, you may have something on your mind. I know that so far, a lot of you are interested in what the Bible has to say about forgiveness. We spent some week. We can go back to chapter 45 from last week. There's so much, but that's a great topic. Questions come up over and over again about angels. I had an interesting discussion with one of you guys the other night on the phone about angels. So I think we'll pick a week to do that. But there may be some other things you're interested in. Somebody asked me about maybe a discussion on the differences between justification, sanctification, and glorification. I don't know whether that even makes any sense to you, but it's an interesting topic and comes right out of everywhere in the Word. So there's three that are possibles. But tell us what it is you think that you'd like to drill down and take a look at what the Bible has to say about it. So be thinking about that. And let's get that done so that we can, so Pastor Jack can get started studying. That's a good way to put that. So let's go ahead, get your Bibles open to chapter 46. I want to do this. I think this is really kind of interesting. So I'm going to give you a little quiz, and I've got a special prize. I want you to tell me, if you can, the names of the patriarchs of Israel. Give me the patriarchs, and then also along with that, because it ties in, tell me how many tribes there were in Israel. This is still a tribal culture. So give me the name of the patriarchs and tell me the number of tribes of Israel.
You did not discuss this with me.
That's all right. You already know the answer. So, yeah. So, and you can do that in that. Down the bottom is a comment section down there. Hey, you over there, the new person, hi. Would you do me a favor? Go down to that comment section and put your name down there. Got a whole bunch of people that like to say howdy to you, so do that. But that's where you can put your answer down there, and we'll get back to that. Where we are tonight is we've kind of turned another page. You know, we have been focused for several chapters now on Joseph, and Joseph was who? Yeah, Jacob's son, one of Jacob's two sons by his wife Rachel. And so we have followed the incredible life of Joseph from the time that he was sold into slavery when he was 17 to his position now where he's the number 2 man in Egypt right behind the Pharaoh.
You got an answer
I've got an answer, okay.
on YouTube.
On YouTube?
Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and 12.
Oh, who's that from?
Justin.
Justin. Hey, Justin. And incidentally, love the poem.
Nobody could hear me say that.
Okay. We have a good friend out there named Justin. Thank you, sir. I figured that you would get that. So, yeah. So Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob I just mentioned. And there were 12 tribes. And those 12 tribes were made up of the sons of Jacob. And we'll get to that here in just a little bit. So that's really great. So
Tracy and Mary also got it.
oh, Tracy and Mary, we're going to have to.
All 3 of them got it.
Tracy and Mary also. That's great. Come on in. The water's fine. I'd like to see how many of you got it. This is just great. So we've been talking about Joseph, the time that he was sold into slavery when he was 17 years old, and that was approximately 1728 BC. So fast forward now to where we are. We're now at approximately 1706 BC. So 22 years have passed since the time that he was sold into slavery to the time that he reveals himself to his brothers. And he's ready now to go back and bring his father, who is still back in Canaan, into Egypt. And you remember even the Pharaoh said, hey, bring him up, take carts, take calves, take food, take all your provisions you need to make the trip. So they go back and at the end of chapter 45, you remember verse 26, then Israel said, and Israel is who? Yep, Jacob, right, when God changed his name. Then Israel said, it is enough. Joseph, my son, is alive. I will go see him before I die. So 46 now is the beginning of this time where Jacob is going to be taking his family and he's going to be headed. Oh, golly, Moses, what did I do here? Oh, they're over here. I made some notes. There's a lot of stuff here, so I want to make sure that we've got it. Do you have a pad of paper and your Trail Boss Ministry pen? Huh? Have mine. Your Trail Boss Ministry marker to highlight? Okay. So chapter 45, we are now at just about, as I say, 1706 BC. We are still in the second year of the 7-year famine that's going on. And we've spent a lot of time in the last couple of weeks talking about that. So I won't go back, but it'd be good to review. Remember, Joseph came into the position he was in because of the fact that he was able to discern the Pharaoh's dream, and Pharaoh's dream was about the famine and the good years. So that's where we are on that. So, but we're in year 2. So there's still 5 years of famine to take place. So Jacob, Israel, okay, and you'll notice that again, it kind of goes back and forth. We're kind of going to see that primarily through these last couple of chapters. You remember that God changed Jacob's name to Israel, and we talked about that and what the two of them meant. Interesting that Moses will sometimes go back and forth, and some of that is kind of dependent on the behavior that Jacob demonstrates. Jacob was a, how do I say it? A stinker, okay? I mean, and it's okay to say that. I know he's one of the patriarchs, he's one of the founders of the faith, and he's also looked on that. But he also, as most of the characters we read in the Bible, he had his failings like everybody else did. But still, God had chosen him as one of the people to demonstrate and take his nation forward. We're going to begin to see that happen tonight. So it's interesting here, right in the first chapter, why Israel took his journey with all that he had, and he came to Beersheba, and he offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Remember, Beersheba, you may remember from our study of Jacob's life, was a turning point when he traveled north. You may remember, to go seek his wife. Why Beersheba was one of the places that he stopped and he did offerings. So he offered a sacrifice here, and he offered an initial sacrifice. There were 3 different types of sacrifices that the Hebrews had, and I'm not going to go back into those, but basically the sacrifice that he offered here was he placed his hands, and this was the beginning, he placed his hands on an animal to really kind of transfer, if you will, his sin to the animal, and then the animal was sacrificed. So that was to open the door for a discussion with God. So then God, verse 2 said, then God spoke to Israel in the visions of the night, which is how he had spoken to him before. But what does he say to him? Jacob. Jacob. See, he's speaking to him in the name that he had before because he's realizing Jacob is very, what's the word I want? Anxious about making this journey. You'll remember Jacob had made 2 other trips to Egypt, and they had not gone very well when things were all said and done. So he's a little tentative about going here. But God speaks to him, he says, Jacob, hey, Jacob. And he said, well, here I am. So God, to set the stage, said, I am God, the God of your father. But hey, do not fear to go down to Egypt, for I will make of you a great nation there. And we're going to see that begins to be what happened, and I think we'll by the time we get to the end of the chapter. So he says, go down. I'm fulfilling the promise that I made to your father and your grandfather. I'm going to make you a great nation. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I also surely will bring you up again, and Joseph will put his hand on your eyes. That's a reference, and I don't know if we talked about that last week or not. But and you may not know this. I just over time have learned this. Most people think that when people die, why they close their eyes and they go to sleep. The reality of it is that when most people die, they die and their eyes are open. So generally, it's a family member or somebody that reaches down and closes the eyelids. So that was his request. His request was that he did not want to be buried in Egypt. When it came his time to die, he wanted to be back in Canaan with his fathers, with Abraham and Isaac. So God says, hey, don't worry about it. Go ahead and go on down when it's time. Joseph will put his hands on your eyes. So then Jacob arose from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel, and carried their father Jacob, their little ones, and their wives in the carts which Pharaoh had sent to carry him. Remember, he sent up all those carts to take goodies up and then to bring them back. So they took their livestock and their goods, which they had acquired in the land of Canaan. Remember now, Jacob was extremely, extremely wealthy. So he had a lot to go down there with. Remember the story of Jacob and Esau and their confrontation? So Jacob arose and he took their little ones and their wives in the carts which Pharaoh had to carry him. So they took their livestock and their goods, which they had acquired in the land of Canaan, and they went to Egypt, Jacob and all his descendants with him, his sons and his sons' sons, his daughters and his sons' daughters, and all of his descendants he brought with him to Egypt. Now, what we have going on here next, and I'm not going to go take the time to go through it. We have kind of a biographical overview here of who all was involved in this trip down. The sons and the sons' sons and the daughters and the daughters' sons. We don't hear, you remember the only daughter that we've heard mentioned in Jacob's life was Dinah in that whole incident. But so Moses sees fit to go ahead and list them here. And I'm not going to go through them. Most of them I can't pronounce anyhow, or I struggle with it. We've talked before, there's some interesting names in here. If you're going to have a baby and you're looking for a good Bible name, this is another chapter to look at, chapter 46 of Genesis. But some are names that probably you wouldn't want to use. How about the name Ard? Hey, what's your name, sir? My name is Ard. Well, that was one of the daughters and sons. But let's go ahead and review, because we just talked about the fact that the 12 tribes of Israel were the tribes of the sons. So Jacob's sons and his grandsons he does list. Now remember, Jacob's son, the oldest son was who? Right, was Reuben, right? Then there was Simeon, then Levi, and then Judah, who we've talked significantly about, Issachar, Zebulun, Gad, Asher, Joseph and his sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, and Benjamin's son, Dan's son, and Naphtali's sons. So that's all the offspring of the sons that went down with him. So I'm skipping on down to verse 26 after we get through that list. And verse 26 says, and all of the persons who went with Jacob to Egypt, who came with him, came from his body, besides Jacob's sons' wives, were 66 persons in all. So do you remember when we go through the list of sons that we had 12 children in total, including Benjamin, from 4 wives. Do you remember that? Jacob actually had 2 wives and 2 concubines. They were his wife's servants. I got my note here. Yeah, I do. Yes, question?
We do have a question. Mary asked, were the servants and slaves also taken with Jacob and the family?
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
The entire group. So, thanks, Mary. So Jacob had 2 wives, Leah and Rachel. You remember that story? Jacob was in love with Rachel. That was the love of his life. And so actually, when he spoke about his sons, he basically spoke of the 2 boys that he had with Rachel, and they were, right, Joseph and Benjamin. That's what we've just been through. But he had several sons with Leah. He actually had 6 with Leah, 2 with Rachel, 2 with Rachel's servant Bilhah, and 2 with Leah's servant Zilpah. So that's where those all came from. So they were all part of that group. Mary, verse 26 says, all the persons who went with Jacob to Israel, who came from his body besides his son, were 66 in all. And so that did include the household. And the sons of Joseph who were born to him in Egypt were 2 persons. That was Ephraim and Manasseh. And all the persons of the house of Jacob who went with him to Egypt were 70. 70 is a number that we hear over and over and over. It's a symbolic number that sometimes is used even to identify Egypt, to identify the Israelites. It was the number of elders that Daniel appointed. It was the number of disciples that Jesus sent out. You may remember another occasion when Peter comes to Jesus and he says, how many times should we forgive? And Jesus says what? 70 times 7. So that number is pretty significant. And it's the first time, I like to mention those, it's another one of those first times that we see here. So you remember that Pharaoh had said, bring him up and I'm going to give you the land of Goshen. Just to review, the Nile River kind of appears to flow north and east. And when it spreads out, its tributaries spread out, and the land is very, very fertile. And that is the land called Goshen. And Pharaoh had said, I'm going to go ahead and give your family that. So, verse 28, so then he sent Judah out before him to Joseph to point out before him the way to Goshen. And they came to the land of Goshen. So Joseph made ready his chariot, and he went up to Goshen to meet his father Israel. And he presented himself to him, fell on his neck, and wept on his neck a good while. All those years that the father thought he was dead, and Joseph didn't know what the situation was. So now his father's here, and so he, number 2 man, matter of fact, look, if you look right there on the back of the chariot that Joseph is in, see it says number 2. I think Pharaoh had number 1, so his license plate says, just kidding. So he gets in his fancy chariot, and he goes up to Goshen, to where his father is, and he weeps. And Israel said to Joseph, now let me die, since I have seen your face, because you are still alive. How many times have we heard that in the last couple of chapters? Jacob keeps talking about being ready to die. Interestingly, he's going to live another 17 years. Isn't that significant? Joseph was sold into slavery when he was 17. And now he and his father are back together. And now he has the opportunity to take care of his father for 17 years. It's wonderful that he can do that. Okay, and Israel said to Joseph, I've seen your face because you are still alive. Then Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, there you go, Mary, said to his brothers and his father's household, I will go up and tell Pharaoh and say to him, my brothers and those of my father's house who were in the land of Canaan have come to me. And the men are shepherds, for their occupation has been to feed livestock, and they have brought their flocks, their herds, and all that they have. So it shall be when Pharaoh calls you and he says, what is your occupation? Then you shall say to him, no, your servant's occupation has been with livestock from our youth even till now, both we and our fathers and their fathers, that they may dwell in the land of Canaan. For every shepherd is an abomination to the Egyptians. So that's kind of, Pharaoh was giving this great land, but it also was about as far away from the rest of civilization in Egypt as could be, because, and too much detail to go into, but the Egyptians had a real, the word says abomination, they had a real hatred for shepherds because there was a shepherd class that had been in conflict with the Egyptians for a number of years. That's recorded in Egyptian history, but not so much in ours. But that's important to remember now. You ready? So that's the end of chapter 46. Chapter 47, I didn't say we were going to go into this week, but it's a natural follower on. So ready? So any questions about chapter 46? Anybody? Okay, good. If there are, you can put them in the bottom down there. So, and incidentally, if you do have questions, and some of you already have, just feel free to go ahead and type them in. Mr. Rinder will pass them on to me. So chapter 47, verse 1, so Joseph went and told Pharaoh, and he said, my father and my brothers, their flocks and their herds, and all that they possess have come from the land of Canaan. And indeed, they are in the land of Goshen. And he took 5 men from his brothers, among those brothers, and he presented them to Pharaoh. Does not tell us why or who that he picked. Going to believe probably that it was a couple of the older ones. And they said to Pharaoh, hey, your servants are shepherds, both we and our fathers. And they said to Pharaoh, we have come down to the land because your servants have no pasture for their flocks. For the famine, remember I said we're still in the 3rd year, the famine is severe in the land of Canaan. Now, therefore, please let your servants dwell in the land of Goshen. Then Pharaoh said, and this is really interesting, really important. Then Pharaoh's question.
We do have a question.
Okay.
Tracy wants to know, is Goshen in Canaan or Egypt?
No, it's in Egypt. Goshen is in Egypt. I think last week also, you're going to, matter of fact, it's down here. It goes by 2 names. You're going to see it in a couple of different places. It also goes by the name of Ramses. And we're going to run into a pharaoh later on by that name also. But Ramses means the same thing. It means Goshen, and it means land of plenty, if you will. But that is still Egypt. Yes, they are in Egypt. Thanks, Rachel. Then Pharaoh spoke to Joseph. Oh, Tracy, I'm sorry. Thanks, Tracy. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, your father and your brothers have come to you. The land of Egypt is before you. Have your fathers and your brothers dwell in the best of the lands. Let them dwell in the land of Goshen. And if you know any competent men among them, then make them chief herdsmen over my livestock. You know, it's just amazing, the relationship that Pharaoh had. There was obviously no love lost between what really was the Israelites at that point in time and the Egyptians. But Joseph had made Pharaoh a very, very rich man. We're going to see in this chapter that he's going to even add to his wealth. So he says, matter of fact, if you know any good shepherds, why, I've got a pretty good sized flock. Why, hire them on for that. So Jacob said, so then Joseph brought in his father, Jacob, and he set him before Pharaoh. Now remember, Jacob is 130 years old. Okay, and he's here now before Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. So he brought him in and he set him before Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. Interesting that he would bless him. The blessing, the blessing that takes place is may the good Lord take a liking to you kind of thing, but it shows respect, and generally the respect is from the lesser to the greater. So Abraham is acknowledging who Pharaoh is, and he blessed him. And Pharaoh said to Jacob, "Hey, how old are you?" And Jacob said to Pharaoh, verse 9, "The days of my pilgrimage are 130 years." Listen to this. "Few and evil have been the days of my life." Poor, pitiful me. I mean, look at the guy's life. And for one thing, he's 130 years old. He's now in the land of plenty. He has everything. He's had everything. When he didn't have things, it was because of some stinky things that he did. But you remember we talked last week that Jacob always lived, the best thing I can think of, and I mentioned before, lived under Murphy's Law. If anything can go wrong, then it will. So here he is, 130 years old, and says, oh, things have been tough for me, and I haven't lived very long. Well, he may be thinking about his father and grandfather who lived to be even older than he did, 170 years. So it gets, at this point in time, I guess he's thinking that 130 years isn't much. But he said, they have not attained to the days of the years of my life of my fathers, oh, there he goes, in the days of their pilgrimage. So in his mind, he has not had it as good as Abraham and Isaac. Stinker. So Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from Pharaoh. And Joseph situated his father and his brothers, and he gave them possession of the land in Egypt, the best of the land of Ramses, which is what? Which is Goshen, as Pharaoh has commanded. Then Joseph provided his father, his brothers, and all of his father's house. There you go, Mary. Joseph provided his father, his brothers, and all of his father's household with bread according to the numbers in their families. Now, this is really kind of significant. We're run out of time, but this is really kind of important because it's going to set the stage for the book of Exodus coming up. Verse 13 says, now there was no bread in the land, for the famine was very severe, so that the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan languished because of the famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the grain which they brought, and Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. So there you go again. He's just making Pharaoh wealthier and wealthier and wealthier. So when the money failed in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came to Joseph, because Joseph was the guy, remember, and said, give us bread, for why should we die in your presence? For the money has failed. So Joseph said, well, listen here, we can work this out. Give me your livestock, and I will give you bread for your livestock, if the money is gone. So they brought their livestock to Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for their horses, their flocks, the cattle of their herds, and for the donkeys. Thus, he fed them with bread in exchange for all their livestock. So now he has he has their money, and now he has all their livestock. You with me? When that year ended, verse 18, they came to him next year, and they said to him, hey, we will not hide from my Lord that the money is gone. My Lord also has our herds of livestock. So there's nothing left of the sight of my Lord but our bodies and our lands. Well, why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we will be servants for the pharaohs the rest of our lives. Give us seed that we may live and not die, for the land will be desolate. Wow. So they gave him their money, they gave him their livestock, and now they're saying, I'll tell you what, it's still rough out here. We don't want to die. Why don't you go ahead and buy us? We'll become servants, and you can take all of our land, and we'll work it for you. So Joseph bought the land bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. For every man of the Egyptians sold his field because the famine was severe upon them. So the land became Pharaoh's, and as for the people, well, he moved them into the cities from one end of the borders of Egypt to the other, so they could kind of protect it, and that's where all the granaries were. Only the land of the priests he did not buy, for the priests had rations allotted to them by Pharaoh. That's interesting that there was a priestly culture apparently in among the Egyptians. And they ate their rations, which Pharaoh gave them. Therefore, they did not have to sell their lands. Then Joseph said to the people, listen to this. Then Joseph said to the people, hey, indeed, I have bought you and your land this day for Pharaoh. Now look, here's seed for you, and you shall sow the land. And it shall come to pass in the harvest that you shall give 1/5 to Pharaoh and 4/5 for your own, as seed for your field and for your food, for those of your household, and as for food to your little ones. So we have the institution of a tax here, a 20% tax. Now, 20% sounds like a lot, but compare that to your income tax level. Compare that to taxes today. That's not a bad deal. They're going to work the land. They're going to get 4/5 of what they had, but Pharaoh gets 20% of that. So they said, You saved our lives. So let us find favor in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants. And Joseph made it law over the land of Egypt to this day that Pharaoh should have 1/5, except for the land of the priests only, which did not become Pharaoh's. Questions? So you can see how that settles out now. So this is really, really important. Okay, going on. And then I'll wrap this up. So Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt. Israel is who? Is Jacob. So Jacob, Israel, dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the country of Goshen, and they had possessions there, and they grew, and they multiplied exceedingly. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the length of Jacob's life was 147 years. And when the time drew near that Israel must die, he called his son Joseph, and he said to him, Now if I have found favor in your sight, please put your hand under my thigh and deal kindly and truly with me. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, I remember when Abraham was sending out his servant to find a wife or son, Isaac? Well, he said that to a servant, okay? Put your hand under my thigh and swear to me. The thigh in those days, and still really for the most part, the thigh in those days was considered the most muscular part of the body. So when you put your hand and swore by that, you were just saying, with all my strength, I'm going to go ahead and I'll take a vow to do that. So that's what Jacob here asked of Joseph, so he said, swear to me, do not bury me in Egypt, but let me die with my fathers. You shall carry me out of Egypt and bury me in their burial place. And Joseph said, I will do as you have said. Then he said, swear to me, and he swore to him. So Israel bowed himself on the head of the bed. What we've got going on here, so now they're in Egypt, okay? They've moved down there, and they keep growing and expanding exponentially is really, if you want to look at it. Remember that at the time of the Tower of Babel, there were already 1 million people. So now they're dwelling in this land, and they've got everything going for them. So what's going to happen, and we'll see it right when we get to Exodus, they become a nation within a nation. Got a question?
We've actually got a comment that I think, anyway, Kalita said, it's interesting how the Messiah came down through Leah when Rachel was Jacob's favorite.
It is. Kalita said, I don't know whether you all heard that. But actually, yeah.
They did.
That Rachel was a favorite, and Joseph and Benjamin were his sons. But Judah, was one of Leah's sons. And as we talked about, it's really from the line of Judah that Jesus will come. And we'll get another hint of that coming up in chapter 49, Kalita, so be ready. Okay, yeah, great point. Thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, do you say we had another one?
No.
Okay. So that's where we are. We're seeing now that the Israelites are firmly established in Egypt. They're in the northern part of Egypt, and they're in the nicest part. But all of the Egyptians are now, matter of fact, the world is basically sold out to Pharaoh. Okay, they're all working for him. So next week we're going to do chapter 48 and probably, chapter 48. Plan on 48 and look at 49. And then the next week we'll kind of finish up with an extensive review. There's a lot to review. We've come from in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. Chapter 1, verse 1. To where we are now, and that is the patriarchs have been identified. The 12 tribes will be identified when we get through with what we're going to read next week. And all of the Israelites are now living in Egypt. Amazing, amazing time, amazing story. Hey, if you think of another question, we'll keep the computer open and you can ask your question. And again, guys, be thinking about what you'd like to talk about going on from here. And some topics, and I will. I've got a couple of ideas, but I really would like to do what you'd like to do, and it's always good to see what the Word has to say about something. Want to mention, and I should have before. Well, no, never mind. I will too. I try to never let a week go by without offering a Bible. I know we're in the Old Testament, and our little cowboy Bibles are the New Testament and Psalms, But we want you to, do you remember a song? There was a song I grew up with called Take the Name of Jesus With You.
Yeah.
Remember that song? Well, here, take the name of Jesus with you. It's in every page of this book right here. So if you don't have a Bible of your own, why, ask us for one. You can do it right there on the website under the contact us stream. Just say, please send me a Bible and give us your mailing address as well as your email address, and we'll get one out to you. Yes.
What are we giving the winners?
I need your sizes. I need your t-shirt sizes. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is.
Jack, they didn't hear me.
Oh, so Mr. Ed asked, what are we giving the prize winners? We're giving you a prize, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, except I need to know your t-shirt size. Okay, so if you can let us know, that'd be great. Hey, let's go ahead and close with prayer, shall we? Oh, Father, what a wonderful time this is. There's another, I just mentioned a song, there's another great old song called Supper Time. I just feel like when we gather like this together in the evening, it's to be fed and be fed on your word. What a wonderful time that is, that we can be blessed and nourished and filled at the same time. And yet, Lord, the more we do this, the hungrier we get. How exciting that is, that you're always there to meet that need by filling us with your knowledge of you and knowledge of the relationship that we can have with you. And we give you thanks for that. We just pray now that while we're apart one from another, that you would give people safe travel if they're traveling somewhere, and just bless their daily lives as they go. And be with us until we meet together again, either next Thursday night or this Sunday for Cowboy Church at 9 o'clock. And we give you our prayers and our praise. And everybody said, amen and amen. Feel like I was a little informal tonight, guys, but that's okay. God's good, and his word is good. So may the good Lord take a liking to you, bless you and keep you, and lift the light of his countenance upon you. And hey, tell somebody that you love them. See you up the trail.